100%.
Particularly you.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that, particularly me. All NBA players go harder on white boys on the court. That's just how it's always.
Like
even Larry Bird. Larry
rules.
Bird got guarded by a white guy. He's like, y'all don't have any brothers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like the unwritten Hooper rules. So no, I was laughing. I was like, it's never that deep. It's never that deep. But
yeah. How weird. It's never that deep. So it's the unwritten rule to go after white players.
Aja Wilson made headlines again, and this time the conversation spread far beyond basketball. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe because we're breaking down the biggest stories in the sport without missing the important details. The latest debate isn't really about one quote or one interview, it's about a much bigger question. How do race, media attention, and star power shape the way WNBA players are covered? Aja Wilson is one of the most accomplished players in the league, a multiple-time MVP, a champion, and the centerpiece of the Las Vegas Aces. She's built one of the strongest resumes in women's basketball. At the same time, Caitlin Clark entered the WNBA with unprecedented popularity after an unforgettable college career that attracted millions of new fans. Those two realities have created constant comparisons, and every public comment seems to spark another wave of debate. Wilson has openly discussed race as a factor in sports coverage, saying she believes it can influence which players receive the most attention and recognition. That's a perspective she has shared in several interviews, and it has become a major talking point across basketball media. Supporters agree that race and visibility are important topics worth discussing, while critics argue that Clark's popularity is largely the result of her historic college career, exciting style of play, and the enormous audience she brought into the league.
Aja Wilson has no problem crying and playing the victim. Yet, oddly enough, she's perfectly fine with playing the bully. Aja Wilson will cry, I'm a victim, and in the same breath turn around and say, yeah, I'm a bully, so what? I'm a bully and I'm a victim.
That disagreement has fueled countless conversations online. Some fans believe Clark receives a level of attention that no rookie has ever experienced, while others point out that Wilson has earned extensive recognition through years of elite play, including MVP awards, championships, endorsement deals, and national advertising campaigns. Both players have become two of the league's biggest stars, but the debate over how and why each is covered continues to divide basketball fans. Another point that keeps coming up is the physical nature of WNBA competition. Clark has taken several hard fouls since entering the league, leading some fans to argue she has been treated differently. Others respond that physical play has always been part of professional basketball, and that many star players receive extra defensive attention. Those competing views have created one of the most heated discussions in the sport, with every game and every interview adding another layer to the conversation. The biggest question isn't simply who gets more attention, it's whether the league, the media, and the fans can have a balanced conversation about competition, marketing, race, and player treatment without every discussion turning into another online battle. That's why every new comment from a superstar like Aja Wilson or Caitlin Clark immediately becomes national news. Whether people agree or disagree, these conversations continue to shape how the WNBA is viewed, and they aren't slowing down anytime soon. The conversation becomes even more complicated when people start asking why Caitlin Clark's popularity has grown so quickly. Many fans point to obvious reasons. She built one of the biggest followings in college basketball history at Iowa, shattered scoring records, hit unforgettable logo threes, and turned NCAA tournament games into must-watch television. By the time she entered the WNBA, millions of people were already following her every move. That kind of momentum is incredibly rare, and it's difficult to separate that from any discussion about media attention. At the same time, Aja Wilson has argued that race can influence how players are covered and celebrated. That's a viewpoint she has expressed publicly, and it's part of a broader conversation that extends well beyond basketball. Some fans agree with her perspective, while others believe Clark's popularity is primarily the result of her historic accomplishments and the audience she built before turning professional. Those two explanations aren't necessarily mutually exclusive, but they often get presented as if only one can be true. That disagreement has become one of the biggest talking points surrounding the league. Critics of Wilson's comments argue that emphasizing race can overshadow Clark's basketball achievements, while supporters say discussions about race and visibility shouldn't be dismissed simply because Clark has earned tremendous success on the court. The result is a debate that seems to grow every time either player speaks publicly. One story that has resurfaced during these conversations involves NBA legend Larry Bird. Wilson has referenced Bird when discussing competitive culture and how players respond to one another. Fans, however, have interpreted that comparison in very different ways. Some believe it was meant to highlight the competitive mindset that elite athletes bring into games. Others think the example doesn't neatly fit today's conversations about race and media coverage. Regardless of which interpretation someone prefers, it has become another flashpoint in an already emotional debate. Kelsey Plum has also spoken publicly about the challenges of entering the WNBA as a highly decorated rookie. As a former #1 overall pick and one of the greatest scorers in NCAA history, she has discussed feeling that she had to earn respect in a veteran league where established players weren't going to make things easy. Like many rookies before her, Plum has described the adjustment to the professional level as demanding both physically and mentally. Some fans connect those comments to broader discussions about race, while others see them as examples of the difficult transition nearly every rookie experiences regardless of background. The available public comments don't establish a single explanation, which is why the debate continues. That's also why it's important to distinguish between what players have explicitly said, what fans have inferred, and what remains a matter of opinion rather than established fact. Whether someone believes the league's biggest issue is media coverage, competitive culture, race, or simply the pressure that comes with being a high-profile rookie, one thing is clear: these conversations have become impossible to ignore. Every interview, every quote, and every game now gets examined through that lens, ensuring the discussion will continue long after the final buzzer sounds. The debate becomes even more intense when people start asking a simple question: would the public reaction be different if the situation were reversed? That's where much of the online discussion has shifted. Fans aren't just arguing about one interview anymore. They're arguing about consistency, accountability, and whether similar comments receive similar scrutiny regardless of who makes them. Supporters of that viewpoint argue that when controversial comments involve race, the response should be based on the content of the statement rather than the identity of the speaker. Others push back, saying context matters, and that isolated quotes can easily be misunderstood when removed from the full conversation. That's why these debates rarely end after a single news cycle. They usually grow even bigger. Sabrina Ionescu's name also gets brought into these conversations. She entered the league carrying enormous expectations after an incredible college career at Oregon. Injuries slowed the beginning of her professional career, and she has also spoken publicly about dealing with intense criticism online, even stepping away from social media for a period because of the negativity. While every star athlete attracts criticism, some fans believe the spotlight on highly promoted rookies has become especially intense, creating pressure that extends well beyond the basketball court. Others disagree with that interpretation. They argue that every superstar, regardless of background, receives extraordinary attention in today's sports landscape. Social media amplifies praise and criticism alike, making it difficult to separate normal fan behavior from something more significant. That's one reason conversations like these remain so polarized. The biggest point of disagreement centers on how A'ja Wilson's public comments should be interpreted. Some viewers believe she was speaking about the competitive culture that exists in professional basketball rather than encouraging players to target opponents because of race. Others heard those remarks very differently and felt they raised legitimate questions about whether race influences the way some players are treated on the court. Those competing interpretations have fueled thousands of discussions across podcasts, television shows, and social media. Many fans have also questioned whether the league should have responded publicly. Some believe there was nothing that required an official statement, while others argue that whenever comments about race become a major national story, the league should address the conversation directly to provide clarity. The fact that no formal response was issued has become part of the debate itself, with both sides drawing different conclusions from the silence. The discussion has expanded beyond players alone. WNBA Players Association President Nneka Ogwumike has previously spoken about increasing opportunities for black coaches and executives throughout professional basketball. That's a separate topic from on-court competition, but many fans connect the two because both involve broader conversations about representation, opportunity, and fairness across the league. Supporters view those discussions as necessary, while critics worry that conversations about race can become overly simplified or framed as if every outcome has a single explanation. Ultimately, this is why emotions continue to run so high. One group believes these conversations expose important issues that deserve attention. Another believes the focus should remain on basketball and that every player's achievements should be judged primarily by performance on the court. Regardless of where someone stands, it's clear that discussions about race, media coverage, and player treatment have become some of the most closely watched topics surrounding the WNBA today, and they aren't fading anytime soon. At the center of this entire debate is a question about consistency. If race is part of the conversation surrounding media coverage, player recognition, and the experiences of athletes, then fans are naturally going to examine whether race also plays a role in other parts of the game. That's why these discussions have become so heated. People aren't just debating one quote anymore. They're debating how the league talks about fairness, competition, and accountability as a whole. Critics of A'ja Wilson's public comments argue that there's an inconsistency in the way the issue is framed. They believe it's difficult to argue that race influences media attention while also dismissing questions from fans about whether race might influence certain on-court interactions. Supporters, however, counter that discussions about media representation and competitive play are separate issues and shouldn't automatically be treated as the same conversation. That's why reasonable people continue to reach very different conclusions. There's also an important distinction between interpreting comments and stating intent. Some listeners understood Wilson's remarks as describing the competitive mentality that exists throughout professional basketball. Others interpreted them as suggesting that race influences how certain players are challenged on the court. Those different interpretations have fueled days of debate across television, podcasts, and social media, with neither side appearing ready to back down anytime soon. One thing almost everyone agrees on is A'ja Wilson's basketball resume. Multiple MVP awards, championships, Olympic success, and years of elite production have firmly established her as one of the greatest players of her generation. Her accomplishments don't disappear because people disagree with comments made during interviews, just as disagreements over those comments don't erase what she's achieved on the court. That's why the conversation has become so complicated. It involves both basketball excellence and broader social issues at the same time. Many fans have also questioned whether the WNBA should have publicly addressed the controversy. Some believe leagues should avoid responding to every viral discussion, arguing that doing so would only create more headlines. Others believe that when comments involving race become a major national topic, a statement reinforcing the league's commitment to respectful competition could help reduce confusion and reassure fans that the same standards apply to everyone. Those are legitimate differences of opinion, and they've become part of the larger conversation surrounding the league. Ultimately, this debate reflects a bigger challenge facing professional sports today. Every interview is dissected, every quote is clipped into short videos, and every comment is interpreted through different personal experiences. Fans, players, and media members often leave the same interview with completely different conclusions. That's one reason these stories continue to dominate headlines long after the original conversation ends. Whether you agree with A'ja Wilson's perspective, disagree with it, or think her comments have been misunderstood, it's clear that this discussion has touched a nerve across the basketball world. The questions about fairness, media coverage, race, and player treatment aren't going away anytime soon. If you've enjoyed this breakdown and want more deep dives into the biggest basketball stories, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next video. Now I want to hear from you. How did you interpret A'ja Wilson's comments? And do you think the league should respond publicly when debates like this become national news?